I guess a quote I would begin with is by Martin Buber. All journeys have a secret destination of which the traveler is unaware. I didn't dream I was going to be a minister, a United Methodist minister. In fact, when I went back to my high school reunion, I received the award for the most surprising outcome. So, yes, I would say, first of all, for me, did I know I was going to become one? No, I did not. But there was a secret outcome, as Buber refers to. I would say two things really influenced that outcome. One is the special relationships I had. And the second factor was the mystery of God's call. When it comes to the relationships, some people I would mention to you. They were special, and there's many others. The Louisiana Conference was special to me, and some people that were beyond the Louisiana Conference had a strong influence on my journey. But I would begin with my wife, Martha, my two sons, Craig and Blake, people within the United Methodist Louisiana Conference that I'll mention. There are many bishops. But I would mention John Wynn and Carol Cotton Wynn, Jake Olmsted, George Durison, Freddie Henderson, Don Cottrell, and the list can go on and on. But those relationships were very important in my formation and in my becoming a United Methodist minister. As I said, Martin Buber's quote was the heartbeat of it for me. But two influential factors were the relationships, as I mentioned, but also the mystery of God's call. And I think there's not a more beautiful poem that captures that than one by William Stafford, when he writes, "There's a thread we follow, and it moves among things that change, but it never changes." People ask us about what it is we follow, and we try to explain to them about the thread, but they don't see it, so they really don't understand. But as long as we keep hold of the thread, we don't get lost. Tragedies happen. People suffer and die. We get sick and grow old. You can't stop the unfolding of time, but never, never, never let go of the thread. I've tried to live my life holding the thread and following where it leads, and that's part of the mystery of God's call. So it was a relationship with people and that mysterious thread that we hold. A lot of my ministry was, I found, not as much about telling stories as it was about creating a safe space so that people felt safe telling me their stories. And then I could walk with them and help them to mine the treasures, the hidden treasures, the insights, and the wisdom that those stories held for them. And I found it was a very rich experience to be able, and an honor and a privilege to be able to do that with people. And these would be congregations. These might be clergy. These might just be lay people who are trying to find their way. But it was not so much about me telling stories as it was creating the space so they could tell theirs. I guess a summation of my whole work with him really came together in a Mary Oliver poem, a few lines of Mary Oliver, I should say. And this to me kind of summarizes what I saw my calling to be in ministry. She writes in this poem, to pay attention. To pay attention. And then patch a few words together. And they don't have to be elaborate because this isn't a contest, but a doorway into thanks and a silence in which another voice may speak. You know, the heartbeat of ministry really was about listening and deep listening to people and paying attention. And I think that's the task of all of us. You know, if we can touch the humanity of another person or another group of people, that's when the needle begins to change. So to me, the work is about that paying attention, that appropriate response, and the thanks and the silence, and creating that and holding that for people. You know, there have been so many, of course, the Louisiana Conference has played that role. The collective body has been so welcoming, so warm, incredible. And like all people, you know, I find that we are incredibly beautiful and broken at the same time. And that's what gives us so much lushness and life and personality. And to me, that's been a beauty, just the Louisiana Conference and the people who have been there for me. And hopefully those people that I have been there for as well. And walking that path, sharing those journeys, the wisdom, the insight. Like I said, my earliest years were the ones where the greatest formation took place, obviously, because that's when you're learning, but it continues to happen. And I could tell you a story of the times that I spent with John and Carol, you know, and us eating in restaurants in New Orleans, or going to coffee houses in New Orleans, and just sharing stories and talking about churches and situations. And that was always rich. They were friends, they were soulmates, they were fellow journeyers that we walked together. And the influence they had, I don't know that words can capture it. You know, I think about Don Cottrell, the amount of time I spent with him, and even in Indianapolis, when we were dealing with the Lilly Grant and the Center for Pastoral Excellence that I was a part of and helped lead in. And all of those were those kind of experiences that led to Freddie Henderson, the way he walked with me. And when we lived in New Orleans still, and he was such a blessing to us. And then I think of George Durrison. George was the senior pastor at Rain when I was an associate there. So that was very influential. And as well as George Durrison was my DS. And Freddie Henderson was a DS also. But both of them I also call a friend. And it was through that relationship, the friendship, as well as their knowledge and their generosity to share, because they wanted me to be the best I could be and what I was called to be. And you knew that, so I trusted them. And so those were some more comments on some of those people that I really, that really influenced me. And the list could go on and on. You know, it feels kind of short. Like I said, I could name bishops, but probably not going to name bishops. I'm just going to say there were many bishops along the way that really had a close relationship with and continue to have close relationships with that really still inform me and still learn from them and gift me with their presence and time and knowledge and wisdom. What does it mean to retire? I'm still trying to figure that out exactly. But because I'm still invested in the ministers, the churches, the United Methodist Church, still invested in who they are, and like so many churches, we're trying to figure out exactly what it means to be a United Methodist in today's world. It means to hold true to our values. It means to hold true to our theological core. And what John Wesley modeled for us, I think, is still so true to us. I think for me, two important quotes. One is by Reuben Job, which really guides me along the way, and that is, do no harm, do good, stay in love with God. Now, the rest of it is figuring out how we do that in our current changing culture and context. I think another thing I would say would be one by E. Cummings that I've used numerous times. People through our RIM processes and all have heard me use this quote. But E. Cummings once said, "To be nobody but yourself in a world that is trying day and night to make us everybody else's is the hardest fight that any of us fight and will never stop fighting." We are called to be who we are. And to me, that's a core of what the United Methodist Church provides, a space for us to accept our giftedness as we come from the hand of God and to follow that thread wherever it leads, and to continue to be open to God, whose middle name is surprise.